Yeah.
How can Christians defend their faith when it comes to criticisms of the Old Testament with regards to its similarity to Sharia law?
Yeah, and that's a very apt question, because it's plain to see from an objective point of view that Sharia law is just a Talmudic ripoff. It's just a Jewish ripoff. It's just a ripoff of Judaism. And it's a poor copy of it. And so the fault would be, the mistake would be to try and defend rabbinic Judaism. Because obviously Christ himself was very critical of the Pharisaic Judaism of his time. And if Jesus was critical of the Pharisaic Judaism of his time, why would any of us defend it? Why would any of us fall into the trap of defending it? And we must remember that the Jews of today are not practicing Judaism in the way that Jesus would have wanted them to. They're practicing Judaism in the way that Pharisees would have wanted them to. But when we're talking about similarities of the Old Testament, are you talking about the violent passages? So those are not Torah law in the sense of they're not one of the commandments in the Mosaic law. They are commandments that God gave to Israel. And they're very harsh commandments, being no doubt. But the way that we would make that distinction is this, is that we're not going out into the world saying everybody be like Moses. We're not going out into the world and saying, do what it says in the Old Testament. We're going out into the world and we're saying that Jesus is the best example. Be like Jesus. Follow Jesus. Muslims are going into the world and they're saying, be like Muhammad. And Muhammad did desire, according to the hadiths, he did desire to cleanse the Arabian Peninsula of its Jews and its Christians. He did permit the massacre of the Jews of the Khyber Valley after they were defeated. And he allowed, I think, up to 900 men to be executed. One of his wives, Sophia, was a very pretty woman amongst the Jewish community that was slaughtered. And on the week where she'd just seen her entire family, extended family, either taken into slavery or killed, Muhammad was having sex with her in his tent. And Muslims will try to say that this was a love match and that actually Sophia wanted to be with Muhammad. But if you read the hadith stories carefully, Muslims actually guarded the tent where she was having sex with Muhammad because they feared that she might try to harm him in the night. And so people stood outside the tent with their swords, ready to rush into the tent to protect Muhammad from his wife on their nuptial night. You know, that doesn't sound like a love match to me. That sounds like a woman is being forced into having sex with her now owner, and they're fearing that she might do something. And so the defense is this. It's not about a particular story in the Old Testament, because we Christians aren't saying to people, follow the Old Testament. We're saying to people, join the new covenant. Follow Jesus. Muslims are saying, join the new covenant. Follow Muhammad. But the example of Muhammad is worse or as worse of all the objectionable passages that you might find in the Old Testament. Mm-hmm. And so if anything, it's a downgrade, not an upgrade. And as to the Old Testament itself, those passages, you've got to look at it and see that God is working out his justice upon the nations, and he's passing judgment upon nations, and he's using Israel as the vehicle of his judgment for their sins, in the same way that he used other nations to judge Israel, like the Babylonians. Yeah? And Muslims can't really object to that, because Muslims also believe that God uses nations to judge as well. In the Quran, it says that Allah will send against the Jews peoples who will contest with them until the end of time. And so in the Quran, this idea is that Allah uses nations to punish Israel for its sins. So they can't object to the idea that God uses Israel to punish other nations for their sins.